Donald Trump's clash with intelligence leaders. Many across the spectrum now say it is clear, there is no doubt, there is no debate. He is abusing national security powers to punish government employees, not only because of their criticism, which is political debate, but also because of their potential role as witnesses in the Russia probe, the criminal investigation into his White House. And we are seeing a rising chorus. When you look at the screen, it now includes Defense Secretary Robert Gates and 6 former CIA directors who served under presidents from both parties, signing on to a strong letter condemning what Donald Trump is doing. They say they've, quote, never before seen security clearances abused as a political tool. They say this is, quote, inappropriate and deeply regrettable. Donald Trump has admitted this is all about Russia payback.
It's a disgusting thing, frankly. Look, I say it again. That whole situation is a rigged witch hunt. It's a totally rigged deal. They should be looking at the other side.
And while this week involved a lot of discussion of former CIA Director Brennan, who I mentioned is also an NBC analyst, there is more going on. Trump now using the same trick to attack a Justice Department official, Bruce Ohr, who's linked to some intelligence in the Russia probe, though he's not even working on the investigation itself.
I think Bruce Ohr is a disgrace. I suspect I'll be taking it away very quickly. I think that Bruce Ohr is a disgrace with his wife, Nellie. For him to be in the Justice Department and to be doing what he did, that is a disgrace.
Let's get right to it. Howard Fineman is an MSNBC political analyst and longtime student of Washington. Retired Army Lieutenant Colonel Ralph Peters, who served his country, as well as a Fox News analyst, although when he left, he said it had become a propaganda machine. He's also had security clearances at a high level, as has my next guest, Mary McCord, former acting assistant attorney general, and she ran and helped run the DOJ's National Security Division, I should say, not a one-person job probably. She says to the New York Times today, Donald Trump is sending out a clear message, quote, don't cross me. And joining us from New York as well is Christina Greer, a professor at Fordham University. My thanks to all. Colonel, I begin with you. Donald Trump does many things that people don't like, which is fine. This is a free country. Why, in your view, does this go beyond something that's disliked and become something dangerous?
Because this isn't how we do things. It's been said before, this is banana republic behavior, which is sort of an insult to banana republics.
And to bananas,
yeah,
arguably.
Yes, well, let us not insult bananas. Andy Warhol album cover, Velvet Underground. But in the United States of America, we close ranks when it comes to national security. And it's not merely a matter of keeping these people red on, giving them continued security clearances so that they can give us advice. But in the case of a national catastrophe, and a nuclear attack on Washington, you've also got this B team ready to help out. It goes on and on. But the bottom line is this. We've gotten to the point where the only thing we're worried about is it illegal? Well, no, it's not illegal. The president can do this. But it is profoundly unethical and morally wrong. And I think while government has never been an ethical paradise, the depth to which this administration has sunk, as exemplified by this behavior, is literally immeasurable.
Well, you began with bananas and you end with paradise, which makes me think of apples and Adam and Eve. And the apple, Mary, of course, involves knowledge. And this is a fight over knowledge and power. And that's the part of it that's not funny, that's not to be just dismissed, because it is, according to the president's critics, and we just showed how many of them come from both parties and from the type of jobs you have where you had a clearance, it is the idea that he is going to say the knowledge is only accessible to people who agree with him, and the punishment will be for everyone else, including these potential witnesses.
I think a comment was just made, not illegal. I'm not sure that's the case, because it's clear that the executive has a great prerogative when it comes to revoking security clearances. He can't do that in ways that are unconstitutional. I think that's one of the things that's very concerning here, which is this seems to be in direct retaliation for the exercise of First Amendment rights.
Well, how would that work? Because we discussed this earlier this week with a legal expert, and I take your point. There are things that you can have the authority to do and abuse the authority.
Right.
But in this instance, with the presidential national security powers, you're not not suggesting that there's a felony here.
No, not a criminal offense.
But
just
that this would violate which part of the Constitution?
First Amendment, retaliation for exercise of First Amendment rights. And so that's the kind of thing that the Supreme Court has left open when it's come to review of the revocation of national security clearances. They've been pretty clear that, generally speaking, it's not judicially reviewable, but they've left this question open.
And we're looking at your comments to the New York Times here that I think made waves in your analysis of this. Christina Greer, I want to show Donald Trump, who, as we report here, often says things that are not true, and we report that. He sometimes deliberately lies, and we report that. But today he said something that seemed to be true, although disturbing. It was his honest view that being attacked in this way, which, as our former leader of the National Security Division of the Justice Department just said, might even be unconstitutional, that attack could be good because it's the kind of hate or haterade that brings attention, and Donald Trump thinks attention helps anybody, which I thought itself was kind of a sad but stunning admission of sorts. Take a look.
There's no silence. If anything, I'm giving him a bigger voice. Many people don't even know who he is, and now he has a bigger voice, and that's okay with me because I like taking on voices like that. I've never respected him. I've never had a lot of respect. I know that I've gotten tremendous response from having done that because security clearances are very important to me.
Christina, as a political scientist and observer, I wonder if you could walk us through the multiple layers of sad premises there, because he's basically saying, I'm helping someone by being in a fight. I've never liked him, as if that's the rationale for national security access, and completely willfully ignorant of the First Amendment considerations.
Right. I mean, Ari, what we talk about almost every week on this show is that there seems to be no bottom to this particular presidency. And so we know that Trump really does traffic in branding, right? He's using the term witch hunt. He's using the term rigged because he has the red hats. That's always been his shtick. And so now we see when he's interacting with even adversaries, his framework is even, well, I'm helping to make them famous, so, I don't understand what the problem is. We saw this even with Gold Star families, how he talks about everything in this idea of winners and losers. I mean, part of my sincere frustration, I feel like I'm sounding like a broken record with you, is that where are the separation of powers? Where are the Republican members of Congress who are saying our president is overstepping in a very dangerous, unethical territory, but we actually need to speak out. It shouldn't just be former CIA directors. It should be AGs across the country. It should be Republicans, powerful Republicans. We're getting these milquetoast responses from Republican senators by saying, well, I mean, it's not ideal. That's not enough. I think that they should really ring the alarm because once we go into banana republic territory, which I think we're in, we're cruising on a pretty steady stream of an authoritarian, dictatorial country where this president just keeps pushing the envelope and his own party isn't checking him. And unfortunately, he's able to brand it in a way where it seems powerful, but it's incredibly dangerous.
Howard Fineman?
Politics, life, existence for Donald Trump is a zero-sum game. He believes that he can only have power and authority if no one else has it. So any independent institution with a history, with a reputation, with a mission that is independent of politics is something that he has to destroy. And that's the essence of what dictatorial banana republics are all about. They're about the personality, the will, and the wants of the person in charge. There is no more independent, at least since World War II, institution in America with greater power than the intelligence community. And we designed it that way. We wanted it that way because we wanted to have people who were free to look for the truth where it was and give good advice to people.
Build on the point you're making, because when you use the word power, you also seem to be referring to autonomy.
Yes, well, that's implicit in the idea of what Donald Trump hates. Anybody who has autonomy cannot exist in his cosmos. And that's true of the Republican Party, which he's completely neutered. And by the way, if you're expecting any of those august senators on the Hill to start complaining, forget about it. I think they secretly like what he's doing because they want to maintain power themselves. And in the case of the intelligence community, they have the temerity not only to be independent, but to say, you know what, Russia has been deeply complicit in monkeying around in American politics for a long time. And John Brennan had the temerity to say the idea that there was no collusion with the Trump campaign is, to use his technical word, hogwash. So this is ultimately a political battle in which Donald Trump is going to use every tool he can find, including withdrawing national security clearances, to destroy the independence and the vision and the integrity of the intelligence community. He's at war with the intelligence community to try to save himself from impeachment and conviction.
I'd agree with that, and I think that another important point here to go to the president's comments today about John Brennan. It's true, John Brennan is not going to be cowed from stating his opinions. I mean, that's clear. But don't forget about the threat to others who might not be John Brennan. They might not have that kind of stature in that respect around the world, who not only the other people that are on the list, including, you know, a current sitting Department of Justice official, but also others who aren't on the list yet, but are afraid that either if they speak out their minds or even if they just do their jobs, if their jobs have anything to do that might be threatening to the president, then they might get on that list as well. So that chilling effect, I think, is something we have to be very concerned about.
I don't think we should be naive about the intelligence community. They're fully capable of playing hardball themselves. But they've always done it, I think, in the interest of independence, of their independence, so they can give, in their sense of patriotic duty, unvarnished information about the world, secrets about the world, and guidance to our American leaders.
So, Colonel, when you look at everything that's just been said, one of the takeaways here is, according to a lot of experts, this is a bad thing. But it's also a bad thing that's being done very effectively, which makes it worse than incompetence in pursuing a bad thing. And some people are so against Donald Trump, they seem to forget sometimes how effective he is. But when it comes to creating a politicized, polarized environment where people like you who've served the country in a nonpartisan way for the bulk of your career are being misperceived as a part of a, quote, deep state, when in fact the agenda seems to be to change the leadership of the FBI because he's under investigation in the Russia probe. Well, he got Comey out, he got McCabe out, now Peter Strzok's fired, and he's going after Bruce Orr's security clearance, which does limit the department you were in, right? You can't work there without one of those.
That's right.
And then you go out to Clapper,
What if
and
he pulls
Hayden.
What if he pulls Mueller's?
And then that goes to the Mueller question, which we'll put up on the screen, what you're saying, which is Jeremy Bash, who was a CIA counsel, says, my concern, quote, is that Trump will strip the clearances of Bob Mueller investigative team. Give us your analysis, if you will, on how effective this is and how Donald Trump, who has been so underestimated politically, seems to be good at doing this bad thing.
Well, I think a fundamental problem we have, Ari, is we try to analyze him as a politician. He is not a politician. He's a masterful entertainer. Indeed, he may be the most successful entertainer in history. I mean, back in the 60s, John Lennon got in trouble for saying the Beatles are more popular than Jesus. Well, I'll tell you, Trump is a lot more popular than the Beatles, and he's commanding headlines daily around the world. What other entertainer can do that? But for me, the fundamental problem, I mean, everything else is a symptom, but this is a president who doesn't like our system of government, who does not understand our system of government, despises the idea of the separation of powers, of sharing power, as was said here. And when it comes to the Constitution, he and many of his core supporters think it's a menu where they can pick what they like.
A menu, yeah.
Like the Second Amendment, don't like that First Amendment so much. And I see them as fundamentally un-American. Not always intentionally so. But to just wrap up Trump, Trump's genius, and it's been done before by many a dictator, many a charlatan. His genius with his core supporters is that he has offered them absolution. Nothing is their fault. It's the fault of the deep state. It's the fault of minorities. It's the fault of the left. It's the fault of traditional Republicans. It's the fault of immigrants. And his message to them is, you're not responsible. Whatever failures you've had in your life, whatever bad choices you were, somebody else's fault. He gives them somebody to blame. And at heart, his core supporters aren't builders. They're couch potato anarchists who are just thrilled to tear things down. He is a potent, destructive force who, as you observe...
But are you alleging that about all 46% of people who voted for him?
No, his core supporters. His supporters come in a lot of different flavors. But the core supporters I see as people who have been told so many times that they're entitled to more. that despite their red hats saying America great again, they're not really wild about America. In fact, that's something I would lay at the feet of the left and the right. We're an ungrateful nation. We're spoiled and we're crying out that we deserve more. No, we don't. We've lost that fundamental American value, the sense of responsibility. Trump is ultimately the theological antichrist of our political scene, arguing that nothing is your fault, I can save you.
You know, Christina Greer, I can't help but say that when I listen to Colonel Peters when he's on a good run, it feels like a combination of General Patton and Lao Tzu. And I hate to ask you to follow that, but I think you're capable because I've heard you make many a good point as well. Take us home.
Well, I think we need to keep our eyes on two things. One, the reason why Mueller is investigating Trump has to do with Russia. And it's not like we don't have elections coming up in September, in New York at least, and in November, and in 2 years for the presidency. So we always have to make sure that we maintain our eye on the beacon, which is has Russia colluded with the President of the United States and his ilk to interfere in our elections? We cannot forget that. With all of the nonsense that Trump brings in multiple times a day, he's really great at switching news stories, and he's done that for several decades now. And I think the second piece that's really important is that, you know, going off of what the Colonel said, Trump is masterful at being both the hero and the victim, and making his supporters feel as though they're the heroes in their red hats when they're clamoring for more red meat at his rallies that look a lot like 1920s Klan rallies, but also that they're the victims that, again, this country has not provided them with what they deserve, especially as white Americans, because it's Muslims, Mexicans, blacks, women, whomever it may be. And so we have to make sure that we stay vigilant, because he keeps going deeper and deeper into this sense that they deserve something as the victims, but also that they're the true Americans and the true champions. There is no such thing. You know, I'm over 15 generation American in this country. I'm more American than, you know, probably 90% of the people walking in this country. And so, but we have to change our ideology of what this country really means. And Trump, unfortunately, has called into question truth, facts, and the media. So when we have these conversations, if he doesn't like them, he can just throw them out as fake news. And so I think we always have to sort of keep our eye on the prize, which is this is a man who does not love this country, and he doesn't understand this country.
Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.